Oh, hello, folks. This is Steve AB4L. Remember, nothing in this episode is a promotion, nor is it a recommendation. And I'm just an idiot running his mouth. Now, I go to slashdot.org every day because this nerd needs news. I looked at this earlier and I saw something that in a way popped up again when I looked at this just a few minutes ago, and I want to show you. But first, I want to tell you a little background so you understand why I'm interested. I graduated from high school a really long time ago. One of my classmates, we'd gone to the same schools together starting in junior high. You see, in the town, sometimes there's more than one primary school. So the particular classmate I'm thinking of did very well. He ended up with a PhD in theoretical physics or something from Stanford University. That's in California, in case you don't know. It's like the MIT of the West Coast. Oh, should I say it that way? Yeah, I think I can, because I think MIT was older. Deference to age. So anyway, his particular research interest throughout his career has always centered on materials at super cold temperatures, like 1 or 2 or 3 degrees absolute. What does that mean? Well, there's something called absolute zero. It's not centigrade or Fahrenheit. It's absolute zero. It's as cold as you can get. And I think his career has been studying helium at super cool temperatures where it's like a solid or a liquid. And I even saw that sometimes he even studied superconduction. Now you're wondering why because there are all these things in my life have, in a way, popped back up when I'm reading something here. Now let me show you what I mean. Keep in mind the word superconduction. Right at the moment, at 4:20 something Eastern Daylight Time, 26th of July, 2023, the second abstract here is the first room temperature ambient pressure superconductor. It's the title. Superconductor. But room temperature. Not at super cold temperatures like 2 degrees absolute. A team of Korean scientists claims, that's correct, to have created a room temperature superconductor that also works at standard ambient pressure. When you're walking around outside, that's standard ambient. Ambient means whatever it is at the moment. Yeah. My classmates sometimes had to pressurize the materials. Want to see what happened. You see, there are things that when you super compress them under height like 100 tons, something that normally would only be a gas becomes a crystalline solid. The work, however, is yet to be peer reviewed. Okay, so we have to put on hold our opinion about it. Now, why did I bring this up? Well, I'm scrolling earlier when that abstract wasn't there. And I took a look at it to see what was going on. I saw this one. Another retraction imminent. Another retraction imminent for controversial physicists. and this is reported from the journal, respected British journal, nature.com. A prominent journal has decided to retract a paper by Ranga Dias, a physicist at the University of Rochester, New York, who has made controversial claims about discovering room temperature superconductors. Now you see the relationship between this and the... But my high school classmate didn't try to do that stuff at room temperature. He just followed the standard stuff, which is that you have to be near absolute zero, which means that probably his research work was done mainly at a time when discovery of superconduction was fairly new. Remember, we're all old. He's emeritus now. You know what that means. He still has an office and telephone. He's on campus. Students can come to him for advice. He could even teach a course, but he's not a regular, full-schedule faculty member, right? The forthcoming retraction of a paper published by Physical Review Letters. I'm sure my former classmate has published lots in the Physical Review Letters. Is significant because the Nature News team has learned. Oh, so this is like gossip. Inside story. So it isn't Nature that's retracting it. Has learned that it's the result of an investigation that found apparent data fabrication. Now that's a key thing. Data fabrication. Faked it. They're claiming. They think they can show it. Because I remember that this guy has come back and said, no, I can do it again. Come and see it in my lab. So that Physical Review Letters decision follows allegations that Diaz plagiarized substantial portions of his PhD thesis. When I had a job at a certain university that I'm not even going to hint at where it was, I worked there. I can remember that there was a professor in a department associated with the department where I was working that got accused of, well, they don't say plagiarized. What they say is, oh, yeah, I tried to reproduce all that stuff that's in that professor's leader of the almost department head, went back and tried to repeat the work that he reported in his PhD dissertation in the materials and methods. Can't make any of it work. See, the point about materials and methods in scientific reporting, especially things like or you publish on materials and methods as part of your research paper, but if people have questions about details, if it's been something like PNAS, you'd better be ready to give them the full details. The whole point of the materials and methods is that you must supply enough detail that an independent researcher can reproduce your work and results. In other words, it's no good, oh, I had a happy accident and I'll report these unusual results and nobody else can repeat it. This is part of what's going on here. He's claiming he got these kind of results in superconduction, and other people are saying, we can't do it. Hang on. So, see, that's what I mean. There's so many things happen in my life. I can think of a professor at a university where I was working for a while who had essentially the same kind of accusation against his dissertation. Like 15 years after he was a professor. The Diaz had plagiarized substantial portions of his PhD, they say thesis, dissertation, and a separate master's thesis, PhD dissertation, and a separate retraction of one of Diaz's papers on room temperature superconductivity by Nature last September. So Nature is involved in that, and they have an ongoing interest. What was that university I mentioned where my classmate got his PhD? Wasn't there something in the news about that place just recently? See, I'm just sewing these different things together. I see them go by. Stanford resignation. Will Stanford president's resignation impact the university? President of Stanford resigns after photoshopped images were found in his NPR. Stanford 7 days ago. Stanford president resigns in wake of falsified data in his research. The president of Stanford University has resigned after an investigation opened by the Board of Trustees found several academic reports he authored contained manipulated data. Oh, that's really very interesting. Oh, I never noticed that before. I wonder if this is somebody that I knew growing up. No. Okay. The reason I say that is, you see the family, of course, he abridges. In my hometown growing up, did I have a friend whose family name was Tessier? Yes. Did I have a friend whose family name was Levine? Yes, French Canadian. Who spent 7 years as president, authored 12 reports that contained falsified information, including lab panels and blah, 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 blah. So to me, it's kind of like a funny day that as I read down on Slashdot, there's yet another supposed finding about this guy at Rochester. Let's see if we can get his picture. Ranga Dias is a oh my goodness. Oh, more of my background comes. Doesn't it seem like his name is Spanish or Portuguese? And do you know where Sri Lanka is? You know, you have India and Sri Lanka. And on the west coast of more or less center of west coast of India was and is Goa, a former multi-hundred-year colony of Portugal. Matter of fact, when I lived in the Philadelphia area, I had a friend who was an Indian guy from Goa. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I met somebody here locally who was from Bangladesh, and his name was Joe. And I said, do you have people call you Joe because they can't say your real name? He said, no, my name is Joseph. And I said, what's your family name? And he told me. And I said, you know, that sounds like it's either Italian or Portuguese from Goa. He said, yeah, Portuguese from long back. So I'm wondering if this guy looks like he's from, quote, India. From Sri Lankan? Oh, he's a Sri Lankan researcher and academic who specializes in condensed matter physics. So he came from one of the hottest parts of the world. Yeah, he was born in Sri Lanka and he's got a Portuguese name. But he's a Roman Catholic like Joe is. Oh, he went to St. Joseph's Boys College got his degree in physics in the University of Columbia. Then he went to Washington State University. And he went to Harvard. See, at Harvard to research metallic hydrogen. What did I say a few minutes ago? Dias' research into room temperature superconductivity and metallic hydrogen has been the subject of controversy and scrutiny due to concerns regarding reproducibility. In 2020, Dias published a paper in Nature describing room temperature superconductivity in a carbonaceous sulfur hybrid. He probably put sulfur fumes into graphite and that superconductor and put it down. I'm guessing. And when asked about a potential Nobel Prize for this discovery, Dias says, yes, this has potential for high recognition, but I do not believe this will happen in the near future. He and his co-author have denied misconduct. But apparently other people can't reproduce it. They point out problems with the carbonaceous sulfur hydrid now. Paper has not been retracted, but they may. Then they start. And then an analysis of Dias's PhD thesis. Remember what I said about that guy in the other department at the university where I was working for a while? Reviewed by Russ Mawson, a research ethicist at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, that's an hour away, indicates there's obvious plagiarism. Of course, that would be her opinion or analysis, etc., etc., etc. Wonder what his accent's like. Bet you he's a Roman Catholic. Bet you he looks Indian, but he's Portuguese from way back, like the guy I met and talked to for an hour. Joseph. So you just string all these things in your life together. So why am I beating on this? It's an ongoing controversy that you can get superconductivity at room temperature and or with or without normal atmospheric pressure. Because the whole point of that is, can you make things that you can put on circuit boards and really go to town and put the supercomputers they have now to shame? But /.com, it's like nobody's looking. The first room temperature, ambient temperature superconductor. There's the article, another person claiming they can do it. In Korea. They're probably not in the next room with those guys up in Rochester, peeking over the yet to be peer reviewed. Okay, good. Now you may not know this website. I go here every now and then. ARXIV. And this is like condensed matter. Can you see the COND-MAT? Condensed matter. Condensed matter superconductivity, the first room temperature, ambient pressure superconductor. So these guys are claiming to be first. For the first time in the world, we succeeded in synthesizing a room temperature superconductor. Now look at the way they say the temperature. A temperature greater than or equal to 400 Kelvin, K. It's a different scale, the Kelvin scale, the absolute scale. Named in honor of a physicist from I don't know how long ago, 150 years ago, Lord Kelvin, UK. Or 127 degrees centigrade. That doesn't sound like room temperature to me. working at ambient pressure, that means out on the street in this room, with a modified lead apatite structure. Superconductivity of this special compound is proved with a critical temperature, zero resistivity, critical current, critical magnetic field, and Messier effect, whatever it is. The superconductivity originates from minute structural distortion by a slight volume shrinkage, 0.48%, not by external factors such as temperature and pressure. So it has to do with the, I'm going to call it crystalline structure or molecular structure itself. They got it into an unusual conformation, and the electrons are playing funny games. The orbital electrons are playing funny games. The shrinkage is caused by copper plus to plus constituent substitution of lead plus plus. So it is a crystal. It normally is a lead-based crystal, but here and there is copper plus 2 substituted, causing some kind of special distortion in the insulating network of lead plus plus phosphate, and it generates the stress distortion. It concurrently transfers to lead 1, the cylindrical column, resulting in distortion of the cylindrical column interface, which creates superconducting quantum wells in the interface. Superconducting. Now let's see if the AI at Google even knows what that is. Never heard it before. But I'm not into superconduction. Maybe my former classmates say, oh yeah, I dream about that every night. Superconducting proximity effect in American Chemical Society, June 23rd, 2022. This is presumably peer-reviewed since it's on the ACS, American Chemical Society. When I was a lab technician, we used to get the ACS journal in the lab, among others, and Nature, and PNAS, and others. We did demonstrate a robust superconducting proximity effect in indium, lead, quantum wells grown in epitaxial aluminum contacts, which has important implications for mesoscopic and topological superconductivity. So there's superconductivity at contact points, rather than it being a wire that is superconducting. Of course, I don't know what the Koreans are actually claiming either. It might be point contact superconductivity. Who knows? So it's a hot field for some people. So I'm sitting here, /.org, News for Nerd. I think it's frozen. It won't change the shape. Oh, it is frozen. The page is frozen. Thank you, browser. Thank you, Google browser. Thank you, Chrome browser. I love the way you keep freezing. I think there's... So I sit here and I see this kind of stuff. Shit hitting the fan. Contradictions. I don't have to go 6-article dump, and it's a direct contradiction. One guy is being condemned as a faker, and this other group is saying, well, we're not giving anybody a chance to reproduce our results yet, but we claim to be geniuses. We're in Korea. We have nothing to do with Rochester. See, I'm playing with this. Now I'm going to give you a hint. Lifelong observation. Let's say the Koreans are correct. Or let's say the Sri Lankan at Rochester is actually correct. When will it find practical minimum of 30 years? We'll all be dead by then, even you youngsters. By the time it actually would appear in something that you could put your finger on at home or in your car, or that will be 60 years. Steve AB4, just having fun. Saying see you in 73.